Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Galactic Ambition, a Star Wars Unlimited podcast, part of the Maindeck podcast family. I'm Dan.
And I am Jason, and wow, what a week it's been for us Star Wars aficionados. We've had a whole lot of gameplay happen all across the world with all these organized play events, and I'm sad I couldn't go to all of them.
Everyone? You wanted
Every
to go to
last one.
That's me too. I'm sad I couldn't
you know,
make it.
I'm really sad. You know, I was like, man, I really would like to, go see what all of these people are getting into in these past few weeks and kind of pick their brains, because there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about with our metagame kind of versioning. But before we get to that, we got to banter a little bit. So I figure I'll go ahead and start that off this week. So I started new work without getting into too much detail. I started a new job, and back in the LGS industry. And
welcome back.
Oh boy, it's like I never left. And it's been really cool to kind of get back in that space because it's been great for my mental state. Like, oh man, it's great. It's like night and day. It's something that I'm comfortable doing. But something I want to touch on real quick is how people have been going crazy for this game now that I've been back behind the counter. To a point today, I had a customer, and obviously with, all of the supply, not issues, but how the stagger, which we could talk about, since we kind of jinxed it a little bit, I think.
we did a classic jinx.
Yeah, we were really good at that.
We
come in and want to pick up product, and they were like, I can't find it anywhere. Like, you're the sixth store I've been to, and I had like 7 boxes behind me, and it might as well have been El Dorado. It was like, so it's really cool to be back in that space to see how excited people are, and how many of these singles have been flying off the shelves and sending orders all across the United States and the world. Like, we've been dealing with EU orders for the first time, which has been very interesting as an American retailer. It fences through some company in Florida who then ships it out to Card Trader, I guess it is.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So that was a lot of fun. But seeing the minute we started taking singles in, I mean, the minute I got them in the system, we were getting orders coming through. Send it out. Send it out. Yeah. So it's kind of wild how everything's taken off, and it's basically our fault, I think.
Yeah. We are the podcast that really, I mean, there's some other podcasts, but if it weren't for Galactic Ambition, especially that week when we didn't post anything, that was huge.
That was big for us. Yeah, absolutely. that was definitely the best thing we could have done.
Yeah, no, it has been incredible. I haven't been directly behind the counter like you, but I've been running our locals. I've been, involved in our local community, talking to our local retailers who are like, yeah, this has been huge. And so you mentioned we jinxed it.
We
which
did
is
jinx
true. It. In our last episode, we talked about how excited we were that, and you can just go in and get product anywhere.
You just get it.
And a day later, we're out.
we have none left.
No, but the cool thing is that it wasn't just that it wasn't just we had none left and you guys are out of luck. It was what happened. So I think, did I mention this? There were some rumblings that I was hearing at the time about orders from the distributors being frozen at the time. And so basically what they did was they were shipping out. And then at one point they're like, okay, hang on, wait. We got to stop shipping out. And it wasn't that we're out, so we have to stop shipping. It was, we got to we're getting a lot of orders really fast and we only have so much quantity. Let's just freeze orders right now and just ship everything that was ordered, but then let's figure out where we're at. So it sounds like what happened was Asmodee did that kind of order freeze and then that regroup. And then they're like, okay, this is how many boxes we have left. This is how many months we have until set 2 and or reprint. So let's, kind of stagger and portion everything so that we don't just have like a few shops ordering, oh, I'll take 60 million boxes and then nobody can get any anymore. So they were very smart. They approached it well. They had enough product to the point where they were able to fulfill a bunch of orders, and then okay, now we can keep fulfilling orders, but it's going to be in waves now. So waves of this product are going to be hitting your store. So if your LGS is out right now, you might be waiting another couple of weeks or something, but there should be at least a small restock coming in, and that'll happen periodically as we head towards July and then the release of Shadows of the Galaxy. So it's like it's not the best news, but at the same time, it's like there is still some product. So it's not like product is shot up to being like 200 a box yet or anything.
No.
But I mean, this is exciting.
It's really exciting. People really want it, and it's not like other launches of other games where it was radio silence. Like, I think the big thing was like they really got ahead of it with the messaging. Like the day after that, the internal email that people started posting went out, and everyone started talking about. I think it was the very next day they made that announcement on social media about the waves of products and everything. So kudos to FFG for that. And it's really exciting that people are going to get more. In fact, we've already had a couple local restocks from people kind of just getting it from wherever they can. And then kind of just making sure that, a lot of stores too have been of the mindset in our area to keep it for price support so that the locals are still going strong. One of our locals has been keeping it because people have been really wanting to draft, and it's a really easy way for people who haven't picked it up, just get some cards in their hands. So I think local game stores are going to really need to be a bit strategic with how they go about it. But I think at large, there's no real reason to panic. People are going to get cards, and you just might not be able to get that hit of opening packs for a little bit. You might have to bite that bullet and maybe get some singles and wait a little bit longer. But the good news is, at least locally for us, we're still flush with organized play packs. Everything's going great with that regard. It doesn't seem like that's going to be slowing down at all at our end, and everyone's still having a fantastic time. But we did kind of mess that up by talking about how everyone could just get it. Maybe everyone went and got it, and that's because of us.
What should we mess up next? Jason?
I don't know. I really haven't got there. Maybe when we talk about this launch event, we could really screw some stuff up inadvertently here.
That sounds good. I want to just mention, before we move on, I want to mention that my local area, we have 3 shops that are all wanting to run Star Wars events, and it took a little bit of coordinating. I think I talked about this a little bit before, but we've got all the shops on a staggered schedule now, which is great, so that nobody's running events on the exact same day, at least weekly wise. We have Tuesday night premiere. We have Thursday night premiere. We have Saturday at noon premiere. That's the one I'm running, and I get to play in. Nice. And we have Saturday at 4 Twin Suns. So like people are doing a premiere event and then immediately going, okay, now let's jam some casual Twin Suns games. And then we have a Sunday. I think that one's open play. That's at a shop I don't frequent very often, so I'm not 100%. They're either premiere or open play, but we have, and then another shop's doing drafts like every other week or every few weeks or something. They're doing like Saturday drafts. So it's, what's your schedule like in your area? Do you have this is crazy for a new game to have all these, and they're getting attendance too. Like
it's kind of nuts. Kind of the same thing you're experiencing. So we have Tuesday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday day, Sunday, or Saturday night, Sunday day, Sunday night right now. And it's all premiere all around us right now. Friday is rotating at one store between draft and constructed based on availability of product, or if we had it, people wanted to draft. And these are still these are not like small locals. These are like, for us, like for a new game, like some of these stores seeing 16 plus people is kind of wild, especially like for their normal games are not getting that many right now. Especially like in offsets of cycles between sets for specific games. Last Saturday we had another 16 plus, and I couldn't even play. I had to leave, and I really wanted to, and people opened showcases out of the prize pack. So I really wish I would have stayed and played. I wouldn't have opened it. I wouldn't have gotten it. I already ran my luck out with that 6 Sephiroth pull I got, and then the Chirrut pull.
Yeah, you've had some good pulls lately.
I've had some really good pulls lately, so I'm dry for the next like 5 or 6 years. But
hopefully not that long.
but our local, like I said, our local schedule is kind of wrangling every storm. Like, hey, let's all get along with this because we want everybody to play. Like, it's not about going in there and buying the product out. Like, no one cool. They want to buy it at your store. Great. I don't care. I want people to be able to just play wherever they have access to at whatever times and not stepping on each other's toes. And it's actually been really good. Everyone's been really receptive and working with one another and making sure no one's really like treading on each other. So everyone could just play as much as they can because all it's going to do is just keep people excited and interested and grow the community bigger.
Exactly. The thing that it bothers me so much when stores don't. Okay, I get it. I've seen all angles of the emotions that run in people who manage and own game stores, right? Like I understand there's sometimes a feeling of betrayed loyalty, something you have to deal with, and just this idea of like, well, if they're playing there, they could be playing here. Like, this is our night. Like, why aren't they? But at the end of the day, what you really want, if you're a store owner, what you really want is you want people buying the product for the game. And when you are fighting tooth and nail over a single night, you are denying the opportunity for people to get in, play on a night that might have worked better for them or something. And what you're kind of doing is it's a sort of a short-term gain but long-term loss situation when you like fight over it, because like you could be like, no, we're going to hold it on the same day as you. And I'm fighting you forever on it. And you might get some more people to come to your store during that time. But over time, you're going to have players that are just going to attrition out more because they didn't have that Thursday night when they could come play that you could have been running, or they could have invited their own, got their own friends into the game and built a community that way. Like, when these different shops work together to create a robust schedule where every shop gets a piece of the pie and every player has multiple options to find the day to play, it just engenders people to playing the game for a longer period of time. So now it's set 2. Hey, you know what? Maybe only half the players are buying through you because some of them are buying the other store, but there's twice as many players, right? So it's like, I always feel it's largely a rising tide situation.
Yeah.
The longer these events stay at like 16, 12, whatever players, where people have different numbers for what's good for them. In our area, if it's 16 players in a smaller card game, a game that isn't Yu-Gi-Oh or not even Magic can get those numbers sometimes.
Right.
RIP standard. But getting 16 players for a smaller card game is like, wow, like this is like, people care about this. This is great. And that when that's just one of 4 events on the schedule that week too, like, yeah, I mean, like we're feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah, I'm there with you. It's like a rising tide does bring up all ships. I think everyone should do their best to work together because players are going to remember that in particular. And then when they remember that, also their wallet remembers that. And they'll be like, oh, they didn't want to, move this around for this. And I'm just going to go to the place that catered to the community. And, I just think that everyone should work together. It's a pie that everybody can most certainly eat from. And there's seconds for everybody if everybody takes care of each other. That's kind of how I think about it. I like that. Yeah, you're going to get seconds when Shadows of the Galaxy comes out, and then thirds. Let's go, and then thirds,
Twilight
and then
Republic,
then fourths,
and fourths when
after 4.
Jason, here's what we'll jinx, Jason. What is the theme of set 4? Okay, let's talk real quick. Just so people know, set 1, Galactic Civil War, Spark of the Rebellion. Set 2, Shadows of the Galaxy. We know it's like Mandalorian stuff, potentially like Bad Batch, like kind of like these people who aren't in the spotlight, but it's bounty hunters maybe, and rogue rebels, rogue clones. I don't know. Set 3, Twilight of the Republic, obviously going to be like prequel era, Clone Wars era stuff potentially. So Jason, put it out for everyone.
Why would you ask me?
Come on, you know enough Star Wars. It's fine.
I do not know enough, dude. That's you.
Just pick something.
It's gonna It's going to have cards in it.
Is it sequel era? Is it Rise of the Resistance? What if it's that? What
if it is that?
All right, fine.
I'm going to softball
Jason.
it back to you,
Jason. I'm going to need to give you some homework to catch up.
I need to. Well, yes, I need to continue to catch up. Obviously, my personal situation kind of changed in the past few weeks, which messed with my homework assignments. Yeah. See, you messed up because I just liked the game. And I talk about it at locals all the time because they'll be like, and they did this, and this. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to attack you for 7 with this.
That's okay.
I'm excited that everyone is happy and excited and can lore out about it. Me, I'm excited that the game is fun and everyone's having a good time.
We're going to get you. We're part of the goal of Galactic Ambition. Not only do we have an ambition to be playing at the Galactic Championship, but we have an ambition to get Jason totally head first deep into Star Wars, like all the way down. Like I'm
all for it. It's not like I ever had an aversion to it or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. We're
gonna get you excited to watch the Acolyte. The Acolyte trailer came out. Jason, the Acolyte.
Yeah, I know, and you were like flipping out. I was excited for you.
It looks so cool.
That's my duty as being a good friend, was to be excited for you. So I was like, yeah, let's go.
Good for you, Dan. Good for you. Well, how much? Okay, but like how much power do the units have? Okay, that's what I want to know. That was your.
I just want to know if they're playable.
Yeah.
Like, is it a bulk rare? Is it bulk? Like, that's all I want to know.
We'll see.
I don't know what house it got sorted in. That's what I was saying at locals. They were like, oh, he can never be a rebel. I'm like, God, did he not get sorted in that house?
Oh my God, Jason, that's so awful.
It was a lot of fun. I was doing on purpose.
All right. Let's move on. That's definitely, we've bantered. That was banter.
Yeah, we needed to we didn't do like any in the last episode. So I was like, whoa, what the heck?
It's kind of like all business. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all business because we had missed out that one episode, and it kind of like,
felt like
we had to really get back into it. But now we're back into it.
Yep. So as we get back into it, we're going to shoot out a reminder to everyone about how to support Maindeck and how you all support what we are doing here. So just letting everybody know once again, if you enjoy what we do here on Galactic Ambition and the rest of the Maindeck family of podcasts, including Fleeting Thoughts and Recollection Steps of our other favorite card games podcasts. If you enjoy that stuff, you can support us in a couple of different ways. Number one, you can always support us by doing all the cool little social media engagement things. You can like the video. You can comment on the video and say, hey, I liked the video. You can show your friends. You can subscribe to Maindeck to make sure you are seeing our content come out. All that stuff helps us so much. And if you listen to us on the podcast platform, if you're one of the Spotify or iTunes listeners, I see you out there. You can always leave a 5-star review as well. It helps us a ton in being discovered and letting people know that, hey, you know what? These Galactic Ambition guys, they're not the worst thing I've ever listened to. And
they're fine.
That's what we strive for, is not the worst. Another way you can support us too is if you're out there, okay, look, it's tough to find cards right now. It's tough to find packs. You might be hitting a drought in your area and you need some cards. Well, why don't you buy your singles on TCG Player? But you can do one better. And instead of going to TCG Player's website, you can go to bit.ly/shoptcgs. That's bit.ly/shoptcgs. That is a special code word that gets you to the Maindeck affiliate link version of TCG Player. It's the same version of TCG Player, except your purchase using that link will send a little kickback to us, financially supporting us at no cost to you, which is greatly, greatly appreciated. So always consider doing that. Really do appreciate the financial support we get from that, as well as your support in all the other ways. Thank you all so much for your support. Jason, the game is afoot.
It certainly is a foot and a leg, I think, at this rate.
and actually, the game is aFett. How about that? We have seen a burgeoning new metagame with all sorts of, the first tournament reports were, one of the first tournament reports that came out, we're not going to talk about this one too much today, but it was like Krennic won, like a blue-red Krennic or blue-green Krennic, I think won. Mm-hmm. And there was like a Chewbacca deck, and it was like a younger, like a teenager or something who was like in the top 8 or whatever, like, what's going on here? That seemed wild, but then we had another big event after that, which was a lot more in line. So just, Jason, why don't you walk us through, tell us about this burgeoning Star Wars Unlimited metagame. What are we seeing right now? What's good? What's bad? What was expected? What's unexpected? Let's talk about it.
So we could start at what's good, and apparently it's Boba Fett.
Yeah, who knew, right?
who thought, like that would be really good. Kind of what I anticipated from a larger scale event, to be honest with you, was kind of like your hyper aggressive decks in terms of the field. Like at a glance, what I'd like to talk about first is kind of like the field, right? First off, that EU event at 222 players, that is insane. Like, that is just wild to think about.
That was awesome.
The game is 2 weeks after launch, almost 3 weeks after launch, 222 players. And I want to say that the field was diverse to a fault. It definitely was heavy on the top with the 3 top decks, Boba, Sabine, and Darth Vader, which I was and Iden, there's a split there with Iden at the end.
Yeah, Vader was only one more deck than Iden at the event.
And I thought it would be a little bit heavier in Iden. And to be honest, I thought it would be a bit more represented in the field. Yeah. Especially with how people were talking about it in their internal testing. I know you've been big on Iden since the get-go. Yeah. I'm not quite as big. Like, I am definitely more of a Krennic player, but I also think it's a personal playstyle preference there. Sure. I think that I don't like losing my guy to removal immediately. And I think that's kind of it's unfortunate, but it makes sense.
Don't play Iden at a takedown.
Well, yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. I had no idea. That's what I had to do. It's damn it. Where's my notepad?
Yeah, write that one down. You're going to need to don't play into takedown.
Everybody make sure you caught that. Timestamp this and just play it back whenever you have any questions. But no, it's just it is kind of a playstyle choice for me. It helps my decision path a bit more. And then, obviously Darth Vader, super strong. I've been a big Vader proponent from the gate. I really think that it lends to a really destructive kind of late game, and you still have all the awesome access to villainy cards and aggression villainy cards, which are great. But yeah, Boba Fett. 43 out of the 222 decks were Boba Fett, and they all decided to go to top 8. Well, not all 43, because that doesn't make sense math-wise, but definitely 8 of them leading to a top 8 of all Boba Fett. And for me, I would just say it's unsurprising. What surprised me, and I don't know how you feel about this, was the fact in the smattering of that were the 2 just the double yellow, the versions, just straight cunning, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That is that's surprising. Not that surprising. I have seen people talking about double yellow Boba, but people are just so hyped on green right now. That's something we'll talk about, I think, in a little bit too.
Oh yeah. They're definitely drinking the green Kool-Aid as, and I mean, you have a base that kind of just says you should be doing that. And yes, and we're talking about the 30 hit point, but no, we're talking about Energy Conversion Lab. Right. It's an obvious theme in most of these decks in Top Cut. Honestly, even the other decks, outside of a few exceptions, which we will talk about in a little bit here. Because I'm kind of excited to talk about some of the more aggressive kind of decks, because that's my play style. So, of course, I'm going to always want to talk about that. And what I also want to touch on real quick, quick shout out to Mr. Cool. Our Final Fantasy World Champion was the first place person at this event. And I think that's so cool that my world champion has come in and stolen this game from you guys.
Yeah, it's not like a territorial thing, Jason. Okay. It doesn't have to be.
No, that's right. It doesn't have to be. We shouldn't be like, no, I just, he's a wonderful deck builder and an excellent player. So I think it's really cool that skill translated over to this game. And I think it's cool that people from all sorts of different card games are getting into this game from different competitive backgrounds and different communities. So I just wanted to take a real quick aside to that, because I thought that was really sick. and
I thought that
sweating
was
him. We were all
excellent.
sweating him in Discord turn, just like, let's go, you got this. So it was a lot of fun. So, Dan, looking at these top 8 deck lists and looking at, I mean, the same leader across the board. I mean, so the rumbling at locals about this is that this is unhealthy for the game, just at a glance. And I didn't want to dig too much into this, but I think it's a kind of a hot take that on either side of this. So real quick on your thoughts. The first large scale event, like real large scale event, like granted 90 people in the other event, that's also insane. But 222 players in the top 8 is 6 of 8 almost the same deck list.
Yep.
So what is your take on that? Good, bad, and different.
So I think the way that I can best describe my take to seeing something like this is honestly, and this comes from also just looking at like the pool of the leaders that were played in this event. And as someone who watches these metagames develop in multiple different card games, there's trends that you see happening a lot of the time too. This is, to me, 100% expected. I mean, I would have preferred to see a little bit more variation. I think what we are seeing is exactly what, and we've talked about it. If we haven't talked about it, I swear we've talked about it in Galactic Ambition. If we haven't talked about Galactic Ambition, we've talked about it in our other card game podcasts as well, because card gamers do things in the same way in every game pretty consistently. Mm-hmm. Okay. A new set comes out, a new game comes out, a new format is out, and players start by, what do they start by playing? They start by playing aggro decks. Okay. Yes. Because big numbers, it's easy. It's straightforward. Make the number bigger, attack faster, you win the game. And for the first couple weeks of tournament play, I was seeing this. What was everyone else saying? I was seeing Sabine. I was seeing Leia. I was seeing attack. And a couple of weeks in, our metagame completely shifted because everyone's like, wow, I got to beat the decks that attack. And our metagame became entirely mid-range decks. Yes. Except for a few people who are like, I'm going to go Palpatine right away. Mid-range decks come in and mid-range decks chew up the aggro decks, because what happens is the aggro decks are just trying to put cards down and swing and win the game before the game gets too late. The mid-range decks are trying to slow them down and then play cards that are just better. Where the aggro decks run out of cards, they don't play anything past a 5-drop at best, but in Star Wars, like Guerrilla Attack Pod gets played sometimes. But the 4-drop to Guerrilla Attack Pod, but then these mid-range decks are just playing like event that kills your thing and dudes that ambush, and then here's an Avenger and whatever, like you just like
good luck.
Yeah, you're not going to get through this. And what we have to look forward to is what you start to see with some of our locals who are like, yeah, I'm gonna start playing Palpatine, because then the decks that play true control are the decks that are too slow typically to win against aggro decks. The aggro decks they put too much damage on the board a little too fast, and a true control deck isn't usually able to have enough earlier gameplay where they can really hold that back. Whereas instead their goal is to get to the mid game where the mid-range deck is just starting to get cooking, and then they start to control the mid-range decks mid game, and then play way over the top at the end. They say, you think your Avenger's cool? I play 3 Devastators main, bro. Like, you're going to get devastated. So all that is to say, I saw the results of this and thought, yeah, that sounds exactly right. Boba Fett, I think it's not too difficult to say this and be probably at least somewhat close to correct. Boba Fett is probably the highest value, raw value mid-range deck. I have a hard time saying it's the best mid-range deck, because I think some other mid-range decks have different matchup pluses or minuses that you might see in different situations in the metagame where they might be more or less useful. But Boba Fett is the one that you read his card. He literally just says, in the mid game, you get to do way more stuff than
Yeah,
your
yeah.
opponent.
You just get to do more for playing the game.
Yep.
Like, you don't even have to like go out of your way.
Yep, exactly. You do the things that what does a mid-range deck want to do? It wants to kill things. What does Boba Fett do? It lets you play more stuff when you kill things.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep. So Boba Fett is clearly this just like this optimal mid-range leader where it makes perfect sense that a bunch of players who went in thinking, well, I just want to make sure I don't lose to aggro decks right now, go and playing Boba Fett, and then 8 of them top 8. And Jason, why do 8 of them top 8 and no one else gets top 8? Well, let's look at how many of some other decks were played. There were a grand total of 5 Emperor Palpatine players out of 220.
Yep.
Palpatine, and I think there are some other decks. I think Thrawn can be on the controlling end. I think there is also potential for some interesting hero builds. I think Han's currently being explored in like really like funny, like Casino Han is what they call it, where you're playing Ewing reinforcements and then playing Vaders and shit.
Yeah, like Vader.
I have to bleep that. You're playing Vaders and stuff off of Ewing reinforcements.
That happened to me. It was very cool.
I mean,
not cool. It was bad. But
did they win? Did they beat you?
No, they didn't get Vader. They got Dooku, though, which I wasn't ready for. I was like, oh, that's still really good. Yeah, I lost that one. I won the set, but lost that game.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I was not ready for it.
Casino Han is really funny, but I actually think there's a build of Han that plays just more controlling in general and plays things like Spark of Rebellion to just like nuke out the mid-range deck's key card. Like mid-range decks are like, I'm just going to hold on to Overwhelming Barrage. And guess what's really good against that? If they don't care about your early game anyway, just Spark of Rebellion their barrage out of hand. Like if you can spark their key cards that they're trying to ramp into, you can gain an advantage. And then Han can drop late and get to his late game stuff a little bit faster. So I think in theory, there are some other decks there that have a good matchup against Boba Fett, but there were 5 Palpatine, there were 5 Han, there were 6 Thrawn at this event. These characters that should, in theory, have some decent ability to play control decks, and we don't even know if they were playing. Like the Han decks probably were like Casino Han or something. I haven't looked through. We can look at all the lists, which is really cool. I will have a link to this whole tournament thing in the description below, by the way, if you want to look through yourself. But Limitless is an excellent website that has lots and lots of stats for us that we can look at. But my big takeaway is like, yeah, this is totally expected because number one, they were building to beat Sabine, and they did. And number two, nobody played the counter decks effectively against Boba Fett. So that's what I expect to happen.
Yeah, you kind of took my words for me. I was like, I would really like to have, no, that's a good thing. You have a really good habit of explaining things better than I do. I'm more crude and like, rock smash. No, definitely,
man.
No, yeah, definitely. I would have been like, cool, Emperor Palpatine against this field would have been great. Especially, and if you look, there was a very successful Emperor Palpatine in the list that got, I think 11th. There was a Palpatine, and that's great. And if you look at their matchup spread, you could tell why. It beat 1, 2 Bobas. You know, it kind of took out the other mid-rangey decks in in their matchups as well. And its only loss was someone who went 7-1 with Boba Fett. Their entire spread: Boba, Iden, Luke, Thrawn, Vader, Tarkin. Tarkin had a pretty bad showing at the list. I don't know, but Tarkin's often kind of mid-rangey too. Right. But if you look at it, it's all these mid-rangey kind of decks. So of course it's going to have kind of a field there too. And I think what doesn't surprise me, and I know I'm not of the only opinion of this, I do feel like Boba did so well and Boba commanded so well because like the two most over-pushed cards I think in the entire set are Boba unit and Vader unit. I think they're over-pushed to the moon, so it's really easy to want to play those cards because they're so powerful. Yep. Boba unit punches up or punches into the cheap aggro units without any fear of retaliation. You get an insane stat line for its cost, and then Vader unit, well, duh. Everything it does on the tin is really strong, and just being in command in general is just really strong. And in particular, you know, I really think in an infantile kind of burgeoning metagame, I do think with time, the hero pool catches up in terms of what we already have and what people want to have access to. But I think right on the tin, if you look at those cards, it's really easy to be like, I should be playing these. What can I play these in to perform well? Because they're kind of almost Swiss Army in that regard. They'll just play well if you put them on the table.
The fact that they work together too, Vader can get Boba Fett out. It's like, it's just, it's, I want to talk a little bit about just general aspect balance in a little bit. I want to just, I think I want to dig a little more into
sure.
A couple more things just about the stats that we're looking at here though, because
absolutely.
But I think that's going to be a really good part of this sort of metagame conversation too. But like my takeaway, you know, that this is just kind of what I expected is also part of, I think, what I expect to be a rolling sort of theme about this, where I think now we're going to see in our next major events, people are going to be building to counter Boba Fett specifically. And so you said right away, some people said this is unhealthy, right?
Yes.
Looking at a single tournament in any card game does not give you the picture of the metagame's health.
Absolutely.
The metagame health will be determined if players start to build to beat Boba Fett, and either they can't, or they can't come up with a list that beats Boba Fett and still has reasonable game against a chunk of the rest of the field. Like if all they have is a deck that like this only beats Boba Fett, that's not a healthy issue. That's not a healthy enough metagame either. But
you can't just go the rock, paper, scissors mentality. Like, I'm just going to play paper every week because it beats rock. Well, scissors is just going to come along and just take you out every time. You know,
and the truth is that in a TCG, you know, we do actually talk about a rock, paper, scissors metagame as one that's, we talk about it that way as a fairly healthy metagame, because that means there's a counter to the counter to the counter, which is good. But you don't want it to be a totally binary rock only beats scissors. You need the rock to be able to beat the lizard too, and you need the Spock to be able to beat the paper as well. I don't actually know how rock, paper, scissors, paper, Spock, or whatever. But I don't know how that version of that weird game works. But the point is that it's a little more of a gradient, right? So we need healthy decks that have good, strong wins and losses against certain decks, but also have game against a variety of other decks kind of in between those. And that's really, if you want to, if anyone out there is and I'm talking to content creators too, if anyone out there is posting like the metagame is bad, like that's whatever is only Boba, that is, in my opinion, that is a very premature take, because if you just look at the stats that happened in this tournament, it's very obvious why it was this way. And we need to give a couple more major events before we really see, I think, the metagame start to flourish, because we're just seeing people doing the expected stuff right now. It's
right. You're just
normal.
Playing what's good on the tin, and then the first few weeks aggro is always strong. So what do you do about that? You play the proper mid range, which is Boba.
Which is, and we'll talk about the aspect stuff in just a sec. The last thing I want to mention is just so Limitless actually lists all of the, has the list of how many people played each leader. And breaks that down as well into scores and win percentages. So I just want to talk a little bit more about that, because I find this part really, really fascinating. So the highest win percentage deck, and this won't be a surprise, was Boba Fett for the weekend. The lowest win percentage deck, make sure I have the right one here. There's two that are at 37.5%. I think there's a 37.04. That was Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah.
8 Grand Moff Tarkin players with a 37, and the smaller number of players, less reliable.
There was a Hera was 36.84.
Oh, did I miss the Hera? Yes, the Hera. Okay. Yep. But again, the lower, I want to make that really clear. The lower the number of players, the less reliable the stat is, because we just don't have sufficient statistical power to really be able to make a good inference from that. And there's so many things in card games that can change. Like if all 4 of those Heras were playing some weird Hera build, then it doesn't necessarily mean that Hera's a bad leader. Most people suspect that she's not in her prime right now, which is probably fair.
I think in time, for sure.
Yeah. But here's some interesting stats. So Darth Vader was the 3rd most played deck. with a total score of 73 wins and 98 losses for a win percentage of only 42%, which is 5% higher than like Grand Moff Tarkin. So Vader certainly is a deck that you can perform with, but maybe it's not the right build right now that on average that was being played here to deal with the Boba Fetts or something. I'd have to dig really deep to see what all their matchups were like and everything. But Iden did have a 49%, but still had a lower, that still means they had a lower amount of wins than losses. Iden being thought to be a pretty good, pretty high end mid-range to control and leader, but not pulling off even a 50% win performance. The decks that performed that had at least 50% wins to losses, so at least as many wins as losses or higher. Boba Fett obviously with 60%. We had Leia Organa, 72 wins, 70 losses for a 50.7% win-loss ratio. We had a Chirrut Imwe. I love this. 7 Chirrut Imwe players with 25 wins and 24 losses. Hey, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something to cheer it against Boba.
It's my favorite deck, so I don't know. Like I have a lot of fun in that matchup.
Do you in your cheer? You've been playing Vigilance.
I'm Vigilance and Aggression now. Yeah.
And are you playing Force Throws in the main?
Oh yeah, it's unfair. Real quick, so at locals this week, guy drops home 1, has 1 card in his hand. And I'm just like, I'm gonna just force choke.
I love this. I know where this is going.
It's Luke Skywalker gets discarded. Like, yeah, I'm gonna hit that, and completely blew him out from there. And so, it's been just so much fun. And then I think what people kind of forget when I talk about local, I'm like, I could just discard a card from my hand.
Yep.
Like, and I'm playing a split. Before I was playing 3 Luke. Now I'm playing 3 Luke, 2 Luke, 2 Mace Windu at my top end.
Okay.
And I've been actually really enjoying playing, and I don't want to stray from that.
Windu with lightsaber, Windu with Jedi lightsaber is an unfair combination.
It's nuts. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I want to move away from that. But no, it's been absolutely broke. I have 3 copies in the main. It's too good. And it's really easy to have a Force unit out, considering mine just won't die.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I brought that up specifically because, it's interesting to look at. And again, it's a low number of players. So it could, 2 more players could have totally skewed him towards losses. Who knows? But it's interesting when we think about decks that are performing better and kind of what kind of matchups they might have. And like, I find cards like Force Throw are particularly potent, especially just like any discard effects in general, because of how much players tend to sculpt their hand as the game gets later. When a game gets later, a card like Force Throw has a higher potential to hit, like you said, they have 1 card left. It's the Luke Skywalker. And often these mid-range decks, to the point where people are playing cards like Force Surrender, these mid-range games are about trying to just get to that end game and have cards when your opponent doesn't, basically. Like limit their options so that you can have your big things stick in play for longer so you can win. So I have personally been blown out by Force Throw, and I have definitely seen the potency of cards like that in these longer game matchups, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so I see Chirrut winning. I'm like, I can, that's a character that can blue-red Chirrut can play Force Throw. Blue, I don't think anyone's playing blue-yellow Chirrut, but you could play Spark of Rebellion in that.
You could.
Would be Ezra is a Force unit as well. So there's some interesting merit to something like that. But yeah, otherwise, Emperor Palpatine, this is a big one. Palpatine had a 55% win rate with only 5 players, 22 to 18 score. Again, like if that number of players, if there instead of 5 Palpatine players, there were 25 Palpatine players, I think your top 8 would have been different. I think sure. I would feel safe betting money that your top 8 looks different if there were 20 more Palpatine players in this tournament. Han Solo, 57.5%. Again, only 5 players, 23 to 17. Again, if you can go to the main deck Discord and watch me talking about this too. These were the characters I was naming prior to even digging into the results here. That are the ones that you might want to play if you're trying to beat Boba Fett. because I think there's some builds that are quite good. Grand Inquisitor holding down a 14-14 with 50%. And this is going to be my favorite. One IG88.
Let's go.
With a 50% win ratio, 4 wins, 4 losses. That's you know what? That's a better statistical performance than Cassian Andor or than Hera. So, maybe he's not that bad.
I hope they had a really good time at that event.
They
deserved it.
IG88
I hope everyone had a good time, but IG88, man, I want to play that card so bad, but I'm like, but
yeah, he's just a little too fragile. That's
yeah. I think his stat line is just not. I don't know if you could have increased it a bit on the same deploy, but it's just not. You're just not getting enough bang for your buck there, I think, unfortunately.
We'll see. You know what? Maybe at some point in the future, we'll have some really sweet droid synergies or something, or underworld synergies where we start to go, you know what? There's an IG88 deck here. We have no idea what kind of cards they're going to add to the game.
I love playing IG88 in limited. It's a trap for me, but I love just playing Lord of the Ground with him and just being like, okay, I'm just going to take this unit advantage and run with it, and it's been a lot of fun that way. So at least there's an application there that I find and enjoy, and maybe apparently other people, one person does as well in constructive play.
One person for sure, at least
for sure.
1 out of 222 players enjoys this. Is kind of like 9 out of 10 dentists agree that this is it's 1 out of 222 Star Wars Unlimited players agrees IG88 is something you can play in a tournament. And
there it is a card. It most certainly is a card in the game.
Card. So that's, I don't know. Do you have any other interesting notes about the stats that we're seeing here?
No, it's like I said, it's pretty expected considering what's comfy and what's cozy into an aggressive metagame. I completely get it and understand. I think for me, I thought I would see more people trying to play Grand Inquisitor because I do really think there's something there. As
We've
an
been
aggro
seeing
player,
that too.
It's nasty. What it can do is it's different from Sabine in the fact that you can do less. You can do more with less units in that deck, which I find kind of cool. With 3 standing and getting another attack in, so you don't necessarily have to go as wide, and you can just kind of use that for a little bit more utility, which I have found a lot of fun in playing Grand Inquisitor locally. I just built it, so it's been a lot of fun. But really, that's really it for me in terms of anything that's surprising. I really thought that this, like I said, the initial knee-jerk reaction is look at it, 8 of the same leader in the top. Well, yeah, duh. Again, everyone was playing aggro in the first major event that got posted, and it's just one of those things that the pendulum is going to swing, and it's going to continue to swing back and forth.
Absolutely.
And where it stops is where it's going to be this time. So I kind of agree with your sentiment. Nobody panic. Nobody think that the game is in an unhealthy state. It's most certainly not that. It's just, again, it's the infancy of the metagame, and people are going to try to continue to solve it in whatever ways they wish. And that may be a different deck spread. We ran this event this weekend. It would be completely different, I think.
I agree entirely. If they ran this again this weekend, it would be very, very different. Let's talk about the aspects a little bit as we kind of close this conversation out. So Green, Green command as we call it. I think there've been a lot of takes flying around about the various aspects, and in particular command, of course, because the fact is that command is the most represented aspect right now. Many decks are playing command in them.
Yeah.
Jason, what I want to say real quick too, there are some cards that do feel in Command's pool that definitely do feel like they are on the stronger end of the spectrum of where cards tend to fall when they end up, kind of getting fully developed in the process. How do you feel about Command its place in the metagame? And where what is this? Is this expected? Is this overpowered? Does anything need to be done, or how are players going to react to this going forward? What do you think, Jason?
So I'll start it off by prefacing that even if ECL wasn't a base, like even if the green base did something else,
yeah,
I still think Command is like it just has some of the best punchy cards, like heavy hitting kind of cards, just exactly what the part of the color pie that Command is fitting is doing. I think does it so well, it's really easy to want to play it, even without the base. Even if we couldn't ambush, Super Laser Technician, to ramp up stuff like that, even if we couldn't do that, I still think Command is an excellent, excellent aspect. It performs really well. It has cards at all parts of the curve that do something and do something very well. Even outside of decks like this, I forget the name of the 3/3 for 2. It has the 2-drop. I forget his name, Battlefront Marine or whatever. It has that. I mean, you know what I mean? So like even at the low end of the curve, you have one of the best stat line for a 2-drop. Just, vanilla, but it's strong. And then you have things like we said, Super Laser Technician, Consortium Star Viper, another excellent card in these kind of mid-rangey lists. Like, cool, I'm already ahead. I have the initiative. This thing has Restore too, so I'll take some of the bleeding I may have lost early from the aggro game. Again, I just feel like Command is just really well positioned at all points of the game to do something very well. Whereas some of the colors I do think struggle with specific points of their curve. Like, oh man, I don't know if like a card that really calls out to me in Command that I must play like at least 1 or 2 copies in the main board is Reinforcement Walker.
Yeah,
I didn't want to get. I'm going out of order of my thoughts, but I don't know. I want to ask what somebody was thinking when they made that card, because it does something so simple, but once I resolve this card, I'm like, I can't lose. I just feel like I can't lose anymore.
We Maindeck Jordan and I we just did our Altered podcast, and we were chatting afterwards because he had just come back from his SWU event, and we were talking about our joint love for Reinforcement Walker. I've been playing it in I think I meant to talk about this earlier. I've been playing Cunning Command Thrawn lately. Okay. Command Thrawn is really fun. I really, really enjoy it a lot because you get to play, Thrawn's an official, so you get to play a bunch of cool officials. And Royal Guard, who is the pound awesome for pound the best Sentinel at 3, as long as you can have his official thing turned on. But that means you get to play Piet, and when you get to play Piet and Reinforcement Walker, Jason, have you gotten to ambush with Reinforcement Walker?
I haven't been able to do that yet, but that sounds awesome.
It's too good. It's absurd. It's a 6/9. It's going to kill something. It's going to look at 2 cards and either draw them or gain 3 or 6 health that same turn, and then it still is just sitting in play because nothing kills it when it ambushes them. It's good. It's really good.
It's real good. But yeah, I think just Command all across the curve hits each point across the curve really well. I feel like I'm always going to have a unit across that curve spectrum where I'm like, this is going to feel great to cast. And they also have Overwhelming Barrage. You want to talk about a knockout blow. Overwhelming Barrage is just absolute beating on your, especially with your higher end curve, or even coming like the mid-range curve. It's still excellent card because you're also giving yourself a stat buff before you go in and nuke their stuff. Yep. So, I mean, again, I think Command is just doing things, especially in the earlier part of the game. It's really easy to see its application. Therefore, it's really easy to gravitate to it.
I am so glad you described it that way, because my exact thoughts on this right now are that I do think overall, we talked earlier about Vader and Fett and how well they work together and everything. We talked about Overwhelming Barrage. We've talked about effects like Super Laser Technician and everything. I think there are a number of command cards that probably, when the game's being developed, they edged on power over weakness, which is a kind of design style that I prefer because it means that there are a lot more fun cards in the game, right? It's like, we don't want a set to come out and they're like, well, they were really scared of making anything too good, so everything's just kind of bad, right? So like we don't want that. We want fun cards. We want fun cards to play. And I would say Command probably does have a slight edge towards like, yeah, Energy Conversion Lab does feel a little better than the other bases in most applications. I mean, Vader really feels like the best thing you can be playing at 7. I think Luke's awesome, but Vader really feels like the best thing you can be playing at 7. You know, so I'm definitely not saying that like, it's fine, you guys are bad, like whatever. It's probably slightly more powerful than the other aspects. But the key to this is that, as you were saying, I think that it is the aspect that is really good at, and as there's been described this way, is the aspect that's good at generating value by playing things, right? It's like you put things out, they generate value, right? It is obviously it's the faction that is just going to make the most sense to play as people are figuring the game out. And as people are looking like, oh, how do we beat the decks that are going really, really fast? How do we build a mid-range deck when mid-range strategies are built around generating value? Well, let's play the faction or play the aspect that is built around generating value. It's,
right.
You know, and hey, we'll combine it. You know, we had people like right away playing Iden. You know, I was certainly one of them playing blue-green Iden Command. We'll generate value. And then we'll play the cards that are good at restoring life, you know, like whatever. That's a surefire way to beat aggro 100% of the time. And I think the big thing is that, as you were saying, you know, it's like Command is just all around. It's a very effective aspect. I think the other aspects have more weaknesses,
yes,
but also areas where they are more effective. Right? So it's like, if you can think of Command as being this kind of like flat line of value at all sorts of different stages, all sorts of different situations. Instead, I think the other ones are going to have more of a wave to them or spikes to them.
Right.
Where it's like, yeah, aggression is extremely good in the early game. Right. Way better than Command's early game units. Typically, like Command has like solid, like Battlefield Marine, a 3/3 for 2. Right. But these, like, have you ever played against double red Inquisitor? It's like,
oh yeah. That's
you were just talking about Inquisitor too.
Yeah,
like,
that's literally what I'm playing.
If you don't deal with those cards, you're just dead.
Yes, you're going to lose. Yes,
he will spike so much damage in your face so fast that Green can't imagine spiking damage like that, but Green can play more consistently, right? A little consistently deeper into the game and has more value that it generates. Cunning generates value at weird stages of the game, different situations. It just like spikes crazy value. Or if you've ever been hit with a Cunning, like the name of the card, Cunning, at the right time, it's like, that's just unbeatable. Just like that complete time walked me. It completely took this turn away from me. And Vigilance likewise, like when you get late into the game, you only want Vigilance cards.
Yeah,
it's like, just give me all of the vanquishes because this is how I win the game. And so I feel like Command is going to be old reliable a lot of the time, right? But as the metagame flourishes and as players get better at making decisions, and I want to be really clear. I'm not saying get on my level, nerds, because
he just said I'm bad.
I'm right along. Yeah, you specifically, Jason. Right along with everyone in, as we all start to improve our play at Star Wars Unlimited, I think players will start to figure out how to maximize the value of factions as well. And Command's not going to go anywhere, but you'll start to see more decks with different aspect choices, more consistently top cutting, because people have just figured out how to apply them better too.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Kind of like what I said, and you kind of nailed it. The peaks and valleys Command has does not very consistently like the other aspects. And I think that's a big deal. When it goes to deck building, when you're like, okay, I can go all across and feel pretty good about my plays here and not have to worry about, oh, well, here it kind of lacks, in the mid game. But yeah, I definitely think Command is it's just definitely just solid, and it just feels really good across the whole points of the game.
It does feel good to play too. Like I enjoy playing Command. The cards feel excellent. But I think too, Jason, you mentioned, like some aspects, I keep saying different card game names for things, factions, elements. Some aspects might be missing, certain like good plays at certain certain costs,
right?
Certain turns. So how do you feel this is going to change with future sets releasing as well?
Well, obviously, as more of a card pool gets, diversity changes. Parts of the color probably start to bleed, which is a big thing, especially as games tenure. Eventually colors are going to bleed into one another just a little bit. Things are still going to stay the same, but that also affects these kind of things. So I think as we get a more robust card pool, obviously there'll be better things to do on each turn. We'll stop playing some of these more vanilla units and stuff like that. Things will have more text. They'll do more things. They'll give you more value in every color. That's just the way things work. It's kind of like a self-imposed power creep, because you don't want people playing the same cards from 7 sets ago if you can help it. So you want them to, from a design standpoint and from a merchandising standpoint, you want them to buy the new cards and you want them to play the new cards.
I think a good card game enables a lot of those cards to still be playable, but as in very enfranchised TCG players, we are looking for our experience to constantly be shifting. That's what we like about a TCG compared to a static game. We want a new set to come out. We go, oh, look at all the new possibilities. So there's nothing wrong with a well-managed power creep.
Yeah, I think there's always needs to be a carrot to chase, whether in deck building or prizes, and or for prizes for the game. And that deck building carrot is, that inherent power creep as more sets are designed and more the card pool increases. Cards get worse as new cards come out. That's how it has to work. Not across the board, but it has to work that way for the game to be healthy. But I think that's the number one way that the other colors will catch up. It's just a bigger card pool. There'll obviously new design space to explore, things we might not even realize yet that these colors are going to do down the line. So we have to keep that in mind. I just think right now green is just doing it consistently across the board the best. And for me, the fact that they're pairing it with cunning and villainy, which I really want to touch on, the parity between villainy and heroism. I'll kind of segue into that real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it. So, but for me, I just feel like if I'm playing right now, I really want to be a villain most of the time. Unfortunately. But my main deck is Cheer It, and I really enjoy heroism cards. But I look at a lot of the villainy, in particular the top end. Yeah. Some of your cash outs are just not. Avenger is like, what in the world? If I get to resolve this and let alone attack, forget it. How do you come back from that? Super Laser Blast, things like that, especially like the control player that lurks in the very back of my mind that does exist somewhere that I don't harness. I really just feel like, at least for a personal standpoint, villainy is where I want to be.
I actually have an interesting thing to bring up about this. I believe it was Tyler Parrott on Twitter, who, by the way, you should follow him always, because he constantly is posting fascinating insight. It's Dav Flamerock, at Dav Flamerock on Twitter. He's constantly posting really, really fascinating insight into card design.
Yeah.
And yeah, here, I brought it. I pulled it up here. He was talking about Super Laser Blast earlier this week on Twitter and said, there's never any doubt in our mind that this card was going to exist in set 1 with this text and title and aspects. The only question was one of cost. We tried it initially at 7 resources for a while, but found that it was too effective at invalidating the early mid game, which makes sense to me. And Garbage Rollers, another excellent content creator that you do need to be following if you are paying attention to Star Wars Limited at all. Garbage Rollers asked them, was it always going to be locked to villain? And Tyler said, absolutely, blowing up planets is very villainous. And while we don't intend for villain and control to be synonymous going forward, we did intend for villain to fall into the control role by default in set 1.
Mm-hmm.
So part of this is it's very worth keeping in mind that what we're experiencing is the set 1 metagame, and what the designers are currently testing is like the set 7 metagame.
Right. Yeah, they're way ahead.
And often, the designers don't design a game necessarily. Every TCG is going to do things differently, but any TCG I can think of right now is not designing a set 1 and going, okay, it's not like when a movie creator creates a movie and puts out and goes like, well, if people like it enough, I'll make a sequel to it. It's not that at all. They're putting the set out there and going, here's the first part. Here's episode 1 of the trilogy of the whatever number of movies of sets we're going to make. And you can enjoy how this metagame plays out, but know that we've been working on multiple stuff in the multiple different sets in the future that are all going to be changing this in unique and interesting ways. This is just how we want you to experience this first portion of the game. And so it sounds like, they wanted, if there are decks that are playing more controlling, that's really where villainy is thematically supposed to be. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with villainy taking on that role right now, and then watching how heroism kind of fights back in the future sets and becomes, maybe something that has a little more control than it has right now later on.
No, and you make a really good point with that. And that thread was fascinating. And also the Force Lightning one was super fascinating too.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, and that card as a Chariot player is an absolute beating when they resolve that. I'm like, oh, I guess I just lose.
It's so sad.
Yes, it's over. Yeah. It happened at locals the other day. And he's like, he still lives. Like, no, he's actually just very dead. Like, and you could just pay 1. Be like, I'll target that. I don't need to pay anything else. He'll just lose all abilities. I'm like, yeah, he has like 11 points of damage on him. I guess he's just very dead.
Yeah.
But those threads and insight has been really exciting. But to your point about, yes, we're just seeing what we're seeing right now. But of what I'm seeing right now, I just feel like I want to be playing even in the lower aggressive curves, because the lower curved like villain aggression units, yikes. I mean, there's some really good stuff across the board, and it's really cool. And as we said, as the game evolves, we'll see more counterplay to that, especially from the heroism side as the game evolves. But it's just kind of like my insight right now. The only other real thing that I could say about this metagame, Fett's Firespray is an absolute beating. And I don't know how I feel about that card. I'll just say it. It is what a workhorse. It does so much. And you just get it for playing one of the stronger decks in the format just at your 6-drop unit. And it just is extremely powerful. A card that comes into play ready, a card that can exhaust something that's annoying you. It just does it all. And then coupled with, ECL, there's also disgusting plays where you're like, if you didn't have to ramp that Super Laser Technician, or just in general, I'll just say that no more anguish at my locals has been caused by this card for me personally. Well, actually, I lied. Entrenched, which is a whole different story, where yesterday, real quick, and I touched on it in our personal thing real quick. And there's a really funny picture that they caught of me when this happened that I shared with my friends, where I had the 3rd Entrenched played on my units on the ground. I had a Chariot that was I think it was a 10-12 at the time. I had a Fleet Lieutenant, which I just gave tokens to because I needed to attack. This was against Chewie, by the way. This whole thing happened.
Chewie and Entrenched are peanut butter and jelly, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had an Obi-Wan I was also Entrenched, which caused me to lose the game to a home one that was just in spaces going, yeah, I'm just going to heal all this damage back and take you out. But no other card besides Fett's Firespray has caused me more anguish. That card has been a beating. Every time it's been played against me, I'm like, oh, I feel very terrible now. I was doing okay, and now this card is going to do so much, and it does, and it's just great. And I wish all leaders had something like this in a way where they had a kind of, something thematically tied to them, which is a super cool design space, which we've seen a bit so far that I hope they explore more as the game goes on. Give us something that that rewards us more for what we're playing, like in terms of leaders or even the unit.
That I totally agree with. Fett's Firespray is really good. And I think the biggest issue with it is just that lack of parity. The fact that of all the units, of all the cards that are directly rewarding you playing a particular leader, that is the one that does it the most unconditionally. Which just because you only have to have the leader, it doesn't have to be deployed as a unit. Like Luke's lightsaber and Vader's lightsaber are both really good cards, right? But you have to have them on the unit.
Imagine if Vader Saber said if it was just your leader.
Yeah,
that card would be broke gonzo. Same with Luke Saber. So this just gets to do that.
And it's the fact that it doesn't share that parity of needing to set it up, and it just happens to be for who is considered, the best leader in the game already.
If this was for Hera, it would be a completely different story. We wouldn't hardly be talking about it.
I want to live in that world. I want to live in that world. You know what I mean? I just got my Hera showcase in the mail, and I want to live in that world. So I will say though that I know that they've probably something Tyler said on Twitter again, but I know that this set 1 was designed nearly entirely from the bottom up. If people aren't familiar what that means, a top-down design set is one where they, at the top level, they looked at the flavor and the theme of the set and made the entire set of cards, a lot of the set of cards designed to evoke the theme, which is what we consider the top layer, right? A bottom-up design set in a card game is one where they started at the ground level of the mechanics of the set and then built all of those and then applied their layers of theming on top of that to a large degree. So they've said that this set 1 was almost entirely bottom up, which makes sense because you need your game to be good.
Yeah.
You need this strong mechanical backing and everything. But I imagine that means that if we're looking for more of these flavor hit cards that really give a unique spin to different leaders, we're going to be looking to some different sets to provide some interesting cards to sort of supplant that over time and start to get more of that flavor, that top-down design worked in over some of the bottom-up, and I think that'll make people happy in a lot of different ways, actually.
And I agree, and I think this has been an excellent discussion on this tournament and about cards that I hate and cards that you enjoy, as per usual. So what a great way to wrap it up. It's been a great time talking about this tournament. Congratulations to Mr. Cool, Alex Hancock, on winning the event. You're awesome. You're my world champion. Thank you for, just being you. And thank you to everybody competing in this event. That's so awesome. 222 players. What an excellent turnout. Can't wait to see some of these other events and how their turnouts go out. And I think it was an excellent discussion. I think I'm really excited to keep talking about all this. We could talk for another hour or two, but unfortunately, I think we've ran our course and we've done our rambling for the week. So I want to thank everybody who took the time to listen to this podcast. Shout out to everybody who's been shouting us out. There's been a really cool kind of showing the love.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Dan does a lot of hard work. So it's nice to see everyone recognizing it. Check out the new rules video that helped me today, the nested actions video. It helped me. So please take the time to check that out and check out all the other awesome content creators, which there's so many lists, but everybody is having so much fun talking about this. And we just want to keep sharing this with you guys. So I think that's it. We'll be back in 2 more weeks to talk about whatever nonsense we're all getting into. Leave a comment if you enjoyed anything, or if you have any questions for us. I always talk back to everybody. Dan makes a good effort to talk back to everybody. We love to hear what you think, good, bad, or indifferent. So for Dan, I'm Jason. Everybody have a good one until next time for Galactic Ambition. We'll see you in the future. That's my new thing. Everyone. That's my new thing.
That's the new one?
Let me know what you guys think.